You will never guess where my coffee was. And this was still here. Still here. So my first thought is this is actually a lot bigger of a book than I thought it was going to be. I was expecting at least half these pages. It is still as magical a cover as it ever has been to me. I love these horses. I love them. So before I started filming Childhood Revisited, I kind of planned to do it on the blog. And then I never posted them on the blog. So I have read this one more recently than my childhood, more recently than primary school. That being said, there are some details that are fuzzy. I think I could draw you like a very clear kind of important points, like they go to the restaurant, they meet the Sultan. There is flying involved, a pickpocket scene, and then someone falls in love with, not like romantically, but like a bird, and it's kind of so sweet and so sad. But it is I don't remember if it was like late 2000s or early 2000s that this came out, but it is exactly as racist as you would expect. And that is like the one thing that I remember above all else. And so the thing that I'm most interested in about this read is seeing the adults. And I know that sounds weird. I'm unfortunately not as up to date with children's books as I ought to be, but one of the more recent ones I read is a historical set in the mosque that sheltered a lot of Jews during World War II. And Sophia is your perspective character, but like you see what's happening to her dad, but you were never going to get a chapter about him from his perspective. Whereas in Chill, you cared very much what was happening to Alex's mum and to Catherine Morton, and in Winterbringers, Callie's grandmother, I think, she gets the epilogue. I didn't realise there was a sequel, but like she and her other grandma-aged friends get the epilogue. Just them. And in this one, I'm pretty sure some of the adults are like MI5 or something. So there is a much more vested interest in it. And I feel like it's something I didn't notice until like filming these Childhood Revisited. But it feels like we don't get that anymore. And I don't know how to feel about that. And I want to at least come to terms with my own feelings about that. Yeah, see, that's what I mean. We started with the adults. So one of the things that I did forget was the magically induced frenzy for Scottishness. Interesting that the thing is with France, given the history, but like, I don't know, man. I think I'm just. I don't want to hear people ranting about them foreigners. I'm so tired of it. And like even from the very beginning, everything that they have to say about this Turkish restaurant is like, God, it's right from the start. And you kind of think there's a little bit of a reprieve. Maybe like when they realise the guy has like a Scottish accent, but it's, oh God. I don't I don't like it. I will say it does. I can't really complain about this, but because I can't really complain about this. They do kind of deal with some not loose ends necessarily from the first book, and as someone who did read the first book, but like ages ago, back when I was still in single digits, it's a little bit much. The amount of characters that it kind of hits you with, because it's the kids and their parents, groundskeeper, and then 3 people at the out fishing, and then then they go to the restaurant with, I can't even remember that guy's name. Yeah, it's kind of a lot, and it's all to do with like the first book, and that's it's fine, but it's just I'm not reading it the way it's supposed to. I do wonder at the nostalgia of it all though, because I don't know, there's some turns of phrases, and I don't think you see that as much anymore. At least in this household, it's. I mean, I think with my parents, at least they watch like UK TV a lot, whereas I spend more of my time on like YouTube, and therefore most of the stuff that I'm getting is American. And I don't know, I just like there's a lot of terms of phrases, things that I used to say, and I'm seeing them now, and it's like, oh shit, when did that go? I think I've been put out with the depiction of Nessie from the moment that I read it all those years ago. I'm so happy that we're finally back to the dragon. It is the first thing that I thought about, and I am upset again. It has been weeks since I read it last because we were at the Sultan's Palace, the restaurant, and I just thought I can't be doing with this man. That said, the political situation is really interesting. It is the further I'm getting into this book, and I'm not that far into it, it's extremely unfriendly to people who have not read the first book, which is really interesting to me because I don't know that I have read the first book, like ever. And if I did, I don't know if it was in order. Really interesting thing that happened though, that conversation with JK outside the restaurant when they first went in. I was reading over it again, and it's just. I don't have a strong Scottish accent, I know that. But. And I've been reading like Scottish primary school books, you know, and it's not like had an effect on like my internal voice, but just that one little bit of JK, just like my voice went very Scottish. And again, like it's nostalgic, and it's also like, man, I don't hear people talk like that anymore. So I am really enjoying like the magic carpets and like the mirrors that you can use to travel through, like portals. I think overall, like it's really compelling and really exciting, and I think I do appreciate on a level that we're going to have magic carpets, and so we are going to deal with like sultans and Turkey, and I do appreciate that there is an attempt to like have some of the culture there rather than just taking like the magic carpet from it. I still don't like the way it's going about that, but I think the engagement with it, just like the decision to do that, is really really interesting and cool. Um, when they're talking about like setting up the mirror so that you can travel from place to place and like doing it right, or else you might end up in like Inner Mongolia or Mandarin China. I was like, what? Because I think, what did that say? This was published in, what, 2009 or 2006? And I thought, what? That's weird. That's a weird way to talk about it. And then they repeated that of like, oh, you don't want to end up in Outer Mongolia or Darkest Africa. And I was like, oh yeah, here's the yike. And speaking of age, one of the characters called something Fab, and I'm like, yeah, I think I think I can guess at what age the author is. We are on page 68, and Clara and Neil have been at the dinner table with their parents and the groundskeeper who brings up the restaurant. They go to the restaurant, they walk through the mirror into the Sultan's palace. They are under the hill, under Arthur's seat, while negotiations between the MacArthur and the Sultan are going on, and that's it. This is just like adults This is a story of mostly adults doing doing adult things, talking about politics, and that's fascinating to me. I also started reading and filming Wolf Girl, which again is one that's kind of more focused, I think, on like the children. But it's fascinating looking at it in terms of like as a children's book from that era, and the language is like it was praised on the back as lyrical. Say whatever else you want about him, but I remember being really sad for him about Amgrad when he eventually had to go away. But I think that leaves me with just obviously I remember the horses because who wouldn't remember the horses? Especially because I think I was taking like riding lessons then. Um, but I think the pickpocketing scene is really the last thing I remember. The mind control pickpocketing scene. I really did think that once the kids took up the quest that if we weren't following them, we'd be following the party they were with. But no, we have some MSP and what is Chief Constable of Scotland Yard or whatever going under the hill, and they're finally figuring out that like the mania for all things Scottish might be a spell, which is it's really interesting, and I cannot get over how adult centric this is. So my memory did not fail me. So I was right, and it happened exactly the way I remembered it. And obviously, I care because this is like one of the few things that I have remembered of the book through all these years. Like after Amgarad transforms back into this fantastically huge eagle, he goes looking for his wee grouse, and obviously he's never going to find it, and it just I don't know why. I don't know why it gets me. I think we've dragged like was it the chief constable under the hill. He has a firestone now. I just like I want the French consul to be pulled in next, and there's a part of me that's like maybe I think he might have been. I want him to see Amgarad again. I want him to know that the little grouse is okay. When we first went from all like this heavy politics into the quest, it did feel a little bit jarring. It's okay now because we're into like more action. There are like witches being sent after them, and that's fun and exciting, and I'm really loving it. But I think that turn was partly jarring because we had the French consul and we had like the Scottish mania, and we had the chief constable and Tatler who had seen the dragon in the previous book. And so, do we trust the Turks? What are they doing? It's a lot of moving pieces, and it always felt like there was so much going on, and there were so many characters that to suddenly just have this very small group of people traveling mostly like unaccosted. It really felt like, oh, this is kind of boring. I did like it, but it did feel like quite a sharp drop. Like I said, we're into pursuit and witches and things now, so it's really exciting again. But yeah, the politics bit has kind of fallen to the wayside. I don't mind that. I just don't like that they've done a whole oh, we're going to discuss this thing, our big plan, and we're not going to tell you what it is because it's going to be a big reveal. It's like, you don't have to do that. You could just, I don't like that. I feel like most of the time it's keeping a secret for the sake of keeping a secret, and we will see. So, I was thinking that we were a fair bit along for the merging into somebody else's body and pickpocketing scene, and I was right about that. I think that must have been from the first book, along with the scene where the dragon says that Nessie is turned into like a mean girl, and I hate. So I was right, and they do pull the French consul into their little kind of inner circle as well. Astounding that the Prime Minister is in on this. I didn't know that much about the series as a whole, but when I was putting it into Goodreads to log, I did notice that there are more books in the series. You've gone very high in the heights of power. I'm not quite sure where there's left to go. He made a tie pin with the little gross feathers that were left though, and my heart, it's so sweet. There was one racial slur in it. I don't want to be too hard on it because it's one where I didn't even realize it was a pejorative, and that was into the 2010s. So I don't want to hold it too much against Forbes, but it is what it is. In terms of the actual narrative as a whole, it's really disappointing that the cloaks were introduced as if you're wearing this, you're not going to be bothered by the cold. You can reflect hexes. You're not going to be hungry or thirsty. I don't quite remember if you won't need to sleep with one of them, but I understand that not a lot was happening when they were first questing, but they got hungry, and then after that, when Clara was on her own, she was like, I'm not hungry, in fact I even feel full. And it's pick one. You can't just say it does this and then have that not be the case. I genuinely thought when the questing had started, oh, they only mentioned the not being hungry or thirsty thing the first time the cloaks were brought up, not the second. So it might just have been a typo kind of thing, should have come out in the edit and forgot. It's a shame, but that kind of thing happens. But no, it just it goes back and forth in it, and it's overall I do think that it is for the best that they were affected by hunger and things, because the witches do come, but there is a stretch where they're just traveling mostly. And I did find it interesting, like I said, It's not one of my favourite parts in the book. I think because it just feels so at odds with the rest of it. But yeah, that was really disappointing. And you know, I have kind of bigged it up in terms of like the politics and all the things that it's got going on. It would not pass as an adult book. But as a child, I don't know if I would have noticed that discrepancy. Doesn't mean it shouldn't have been dealt with. Like, you know, children deserve good books and effort put into them, and I feel like there had to have been some way, but I don't know. I don't know. It's disappointing. It's not really the series for this question, but I am going to answer it anyway. Would I continue reading the series? No. That said, there are a lot of things in it that are really appealing and really cool. And I do want to know how the Sultan's going to come back. And I do. There was always a sense that something was missing because of the way that it didn't like recap the first book, which is a decision that I'm fully in favor of. I'm the one who's not doing this right. And I do kind of wish I could fill in all the blanks, but I don't think for me that it would be worth it in the end. I have a lot of other books to read, and I don't think the love that I had for this is going to necessarily be in those other books. Anyway, shout out to Anthony Wooten for the cover, for the cover design, and also I want to point out, under 300 pages, $5.99 for a book, for like an actual full ass book. Different time.